Brought to you by Thomas Allgaier and Frennis. This edition highlights key LinkedIn posts on future mobility and market evolution in weeks 23 and 24. Frennis supports Tier 1 automotive suppliers with early-stage market validation for their R&D efforts by combining secondary research, direct ODM expert interviews, and facilitated customer meetings. You can find more info in the description.
And honestly, the insights we're digging into today are they're a massive reality check.
Yeah, totally. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. I'm your host, and today we're unpacking the top future mobility trends that professionals have been, buzzing about across LinkedIn.
Right, specifically pulling from calendar weeks 23 and 24.
Yeah.
And I'm here to help analyze all these expert takes, break down the tech, all that good stuff.
Exactly. And our mission today is really to look at the big shift happening in the industry, because we're kind of stepping out of that pristine sci-fi vision of smart cities, right?
Oh, absolutely. The hype cycle it's officially broken. The people actually building these systems, they aren't talking about flashy future scenarios anymore.
Right. It's all about deployment readiness now.
Exactly. Readiness, infrastructure constraints, affordability, and just the sheer friction of the real world. That's the overarching theme.
Which is a perfect segue, because nowhere is that friction more obvious right now than in autonomous mobility. Let's start there.
Yeah, the robotaxi space.
Because we are crossing a massive threshold. I saw a post from Marcus Beret, and he pointed out this staggering number. The industry is now generating 500,000 paid driverless rides a week.
500,000 paid rides. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. We are so far past the era of, those cute little pilot programs with safety drivers hovering over the wheel.
Right. This is a functioning, scaled commercial service now.
And it's not isolated to just one or two tech hubs anymore.
No, totally. Like Paul Bennett highlighted that Uber is actually opening signups for robotaxis in London right now.
Wow, London. That's a complex environment.
It is. And on top of that, Uber and Jazz noted that Saudi Arabia is deploying level 4 NVIDIA-powered fleets via a company called Humane.
Let's clarify what that actually means for you as a passenger, though, because level 4 is a really critical distinction here.
Right. It's not full autonomy everywhere, right?
Exactly. It means the car is driving itself like zero human intervention, but only within a specific digitally mapped area. It can't just, spontaneously decide to drive you off-road into the desert.
Got it.
But what Saudi Arabia is doing is fascinating. They aren't just buying cars. They're using these NVIDIA fleets to build a sovereign AI infrastructure. So the mobility part is really just the physical execution of a much larger national tech strategy.
That is wild. But I want to pause on this idea of scaling for a second.
Yeah.
Because it makes it sound like the tech is just totally solved.
Right, which it isn't.
Exactly. When I read Sherry Hendrickson's recent post about Waymo, it paints a very different picture.
Yeah, the reality is much messier than the press releases like to admit. Henderson brought up a really important reality check regarding Waymo's new vehicle, the OJ.
Right. And the hardware on the OJ is incredible. I mean, they built it from the ground up just to be a robotaxi. Flat floors, low step-in height.
No steering wheel taking up space.
Yeah, no steering wheel. It's fully optimized for the passenger. But there is a huge catch.
The software.
Exactly. The hardware is leaping forward, but the software is still getting completely tripped up by everyday chaos. Like Hendrickson points out, Waymo recently had to shut down service in 6 U.S. cities.
Because of flooding issues, right?
Yeah, flooding issues. And they also had to suspend highway driving because of construction zones.
Well, think about it from a human perspective. If you're a human driver, you know exactly how to handle a puddle.
Right.
You look at it, gauge the depth, watch the car in front of you, and just drive through it.
Right, it's intuitive.
But to an autonomous vehicle's cameras or its LiDAR, a big puddle might look like a solid black hole on the road. Or, a mirror reflecting the sky. The software lacks the contextual awareness to just say, oh, that's just water. So the hardware innovation is outpacing the software's real-world reliability. Humans understand context. Machines just see conflicting data points.
Which brings up a massive question about regulation. Right now, it feels like these companies are just asking for a blank check to deploy vehicles everywhere.
Yeah, and Brian Reimer had a fantastic analysis on this. He used a really great analogy.
The graduated driver's license.
Yes. You know how you get your driver's license as a teenager? You don't just get a piece of paper that lets you drive anywhere, anytime.
Right. You have to prove you can handle daytime driving first. Then maybe you earn the right to drive at night.
Exactly. And eventually you're allowed to have passengers. Reimer argues that we need to regulate robotaxis the exact same way. The next phase of growth needs to be based on conditional permits.
Meaning they have to earn the right to scale up step by step.
Precisely. You start under clearly defined conditions, like clear weather, low-speed roads. You only expand when the data actually proves it's safe.
And if safety risks pop up, like the floodwaters, regulators can just throttle the permits back without a massive legal fight.
Right, which feeds directly into the safety debate we're seeing. Lucas Neckerman offered a very sharp critique of Tesla's full self-driving marketing.
Oh man, yeah, he did not hold back.
No, he didn't. He called out this extreme reliance on fine print disclaimers. You can't market a system as full self-driving while hiding behind legal text that says the human has to stay fully attentive.
Yeah, he argued that it's a dangerously reactive approach. It basically turns pedestrians and passengers into beta testers.
And Ricky Walk took this a step further. He looked at the actual mathematics of how these vehicles learn. Right now, it's a drive, find, and fix model.
Right. Put the fleets out there, find errors, and send an over-the-air patch.
But Kawak argues that brute-forcing safety like that is mathematically unsustainable. The real world has an infinite number of weird events, what data scientists call the long tail.
So you can't possibly code an update for every bizarre scenario.
Exactly. You're treating safety like a post-it note software patch. So Kawak says the solution isn't making the car smarter. It's shifting the intelligence to the road itself.
Okay, using edge nodes, right? Let's unpack that. What exactly is an edge node?
Think of a highly intelligent street lamp at a really complex intersection. It has its own sensors, its own processing power.
Right.
Instead of every single autonomous car rolling up and trying to independently scan the chaos. And guess what pedestrians are doing? The street lamp sees the whole picture.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it processes the chaos and streams a real-time ground truth map directly to the approaching cars.
So instead of giving the car better eyes, the road itself just sends a message to the car a mile in advance saying, hey, right lane is flooded, merge left now.
That's the exact mechanism. You resolve the chaos before the vehicle even arrives at the problem.
That makes so much sense. But before we move off autonomous vehicles, we have to talk about Steve Greenfield's warning, because this totally changed how I view the tech.
Well, the zombie miles.
Yes. We spent all this time worrying about shared robotaxis like Uber, but Greenfield points out the real nightmare for cities might be personally owned AVs.
It's a terrifying thought for traffic planners. Imagine you own a self-driving car. You commute to the city center, but parking is like $50.
Right, so you just tell your empty car to drive all the way back to your suburban driveway to park for free, and then come pick you up at 5 p.m.
So for every one commute, your car is making 4 trips, 2 of them completely empty.
You'd have a flood of zero-passenger cars just gridlocking our streets.
It reshapes urban congestion entirely, and definitely not for the better.
Which actually brings us perfectly to the other side of the mobility equation. If AVs need smarter infrastructure, what happens when we apply that smart thinking to the public transit systems we already have?
Well, you start to realize we've been asking the wrong questions for a decade. Tomas Gabor shared an insight about autonomous buses that completely flips the business case.
Yeah, I always struggled with the autonomous bus pitch. Historically, companies pitch them to cities as a way to save money on driver wages.
Right, but the tech costs millions.
Exactly. How does saving one hourly wage balance out a multi-million-dollar sensor suite?
It doesn't. But Gabor points out that Europe is currently short 275,000 bus drivers. You literally cannot fire a driver you couldn't hire in the first place.
So the missing driver doesn't represent a saved salary. It represents a completely canceled bus route.
Exactly. The driver isn't a line item cost. The driver is the service. So the business case for an autonomous bus is actually about service recovery. It's the only way to keep critical public transit running when human staffing is impossible.
That completely reframes the value of the tech. But you know what's fascinating? Sometimes fixing urban mobility doesn't require AI or robotics at all.
Right. Behavioral design.
Yes. Low-cost interventions vastly outperforming expensive infrastructure. Like that red light in Mumbai we were talking about before we started recording. Yohan Burno posted about this.
Oh, the punishing signal. I love this example. So Mumbai had a massive noise pollution crisis from drivers honking at red lights. Fines just weren't working.
So how did they fix it? Mechanically, I mean.
They installed simple decibel meters on the traffic light poles, wired directly into the timer. If the collective honking exceeded 85 decibels, the red light timer automatically reset back to 90 seconds.
Honk more. Wait more. That is brilliant behavioral conditioning.
It instantly solved the crisis. No police, no fines. Burno pointed out, Don't just tell people to change their behavior. Make the system design the consequences.
And we saw another zero-cost example of this from Mohammed Sharat in Amman. He pointed out you don't always need to pour asphalt to fix a traffic jam.
Right, they just adjusted the schedule.
Yeah, they staggered the start times of public sectors and schools by just 30 minutes.
It's like water flowing through a pipe. If everyone tries to push through at 8 a.m., the pipe gridlocks. Sharat noted that shifting just a fraction of that volume to 8:30 a.m. flattened peak traffic by 15%.
Costs absolutely nothing. And Ha Samaro shared a physical intervention from South Korea that's similar.
The walking lanes?
Yeah, they're testing separate walking lanes on sidewalks for fast and slow pedestrians. Commuters in a rush take one lane, tourists take the other. It just acknowledges how human beings actually move.
But, when a city does need to spend money, Guillermo Kempelmoor noted something revealing about digital infrastructure. In the exact same week, both New York City and Los Angeles launched unified transit apps.
This is a massive shift. For years, you had to have, one app for the subway and a totally different one to rent a city bike.
Right, but NYC's new Go app and LA Metro's app unify all those modes into one interface. Kempelmoor says this proves integrated digital mobility is finally a real procurement priority for cities.
Because you can't have true multimodal transport like taking a train and then grabbing an e-scooter if the user has to juggle 6 apps.
Exactly. The digital infrastructure is the prerequisite for physical movement.
Which leads perfectly into the final piece of the urban puzzle. You get off the subway, how do you get to your front door?
The first and last mile connection.
Let's zoom in on micromobility, especially the insights out of the Micromobility Europe 2026 event in Berlin, because this sector has finally moved past its Wild West phase.
It really has. Martin Lutronc observed at the event that the sector is shifting into serious professionalization. But getting there required a total reversal of strategy.
Yeah, Central Jaffa pointed out the old playbook was just flood the streets, dump thousands of scooters everywhere, and figure out profits later.
The blitzscaling era is dead. Jetha notes that thriving operators like Voy and Dot are hitting profitability now because they are ruthlessly pruning their unprofitable markets.
Focusing entirely on high-yield, dense corridors.
Exactly. And Manuel Herzog backed this up with data from Zurich. Dot's new scooter fleet there is hitting an unprecedented 96% daily availability.
96%? How do you physically achieve that?
Efficient, swappable batteries. Their logistics teams are doing fewer battery swaps, keeping vehicles on the streets longer. Plus, predictive data tells them exactly which street corners have the highest demand.
But there is a massive contradiction here. Just as the economics are working, the policy risk is peaking.
The regulatory backlash.
Yeah. Preben Joel Jones expressed deep frustration over Brussels' decision to outright ban shared e-scooters starting in 2027.
And he pointed out the inconsistency, right? City councils cite safety, but private cars have way higher accident rates and don't face existential bans.
Exactly. And Henk Swartouw highlighted a similarly disappointing move in Barcelona. They're banning shared e-bikes from 2027. They expect the public bike system to absorb the demand, but it just doesn't have the capacity.
These bans set a dangerous precedent. But if you look closely, the real bottleneck for growth isn't the vehicles themselves. Charlie Wilson pointed out it's the lack of infrastructure. Nearly half of riders say they would use micromobility more if the streets were safer.
And infrastructure fixes the regulatory headaches, too. If regulators hate sidewalk clutter, you need a physical solution. Thomas Broughton highlighted a brilliant deployment in London with the operator Barrel.
The operator-agnostic parking structures. This is how you build trust with the city.
Instead of relying on GPS geofencing, which bounces around off tall buildings, these physical racks use hard verification.
Right, there's a physical docking pin. It interfaces directly with the scooter, and until that pin clicks into place, the meter is still running on your credit card.
Wow, so you literally cannot end your ride until it's properly slotted in the rack. That instantly solves the abandoned scooter problem.
And because it's operator-agnostic, any company's vehicle can use it. It's public infrastructure for private operators.
Which brings up a question I wanted to ask you. Hearing all this pruning markets, standardized docks, high availability, does this mean micromobility is finally becoming a boring utility, like a water or power company, and is that the ultimate goal?
Oh, absolutely. When a service becomes a boring, reliable utility, it means it has successfully integrated into daily life. It's no longer a novelty. It's just how you get to work. That predictability is what investors and cities need.
But I'm glad the industry still has its quirks. Johann Haugesson Hallesby shared his excitement from Berlin over the new Also e-bike. It has a drive-by-wire design.
A fascinating mechanical shift. Drive-by-wire means the pedals aren't connected to the rear wheel with a chain.
Wait, so how does pedaling move the bike?
When you pedal, you're just turning a generator that creates electricity. That electricity is sent via wires to a motor in the wheel. Haugesson Hallesby noted it makes acceleration incredibly smooth.
And no greasy chain, so it's super modular. You could swap the seat for a cargo rack in seconds.
Exactly. It's becoming a true car replacement for cities.
And speaking of city life, Brandon Shu shared a hilarious, well, unfortunate anecdote from London. Two guys on a silent, battery-powered e-bike rode up behind him and snatched his phone right out of his hands.
A very modern electrified crime.
Right. But Brandon jokingly blamed it on rival insurance brokers. He spun this whole conspiracy theory on LinkedIn that competitors were trying to sabotage his firm.
You have to appreciate a mobility professional finding the dark humor in experiencing a micromobility crime firsthand.
Okay, as we pull all these threads together, from puddles confusing robotaxis to operator-agnostic scooter docks, what is the big takeaway you want the listener to walk away with?
I want to leave you with a final thought that connects our first theme of autonomy with a much larger geopolitical reality. Timothy Papandreou raised a vital question about technological sovereignty.
Okay, let's unpack this.
As Europe and the Middle East aggressively roll out autonomous networks like the fleets in Switzerland, Munich, Saudi Arabia, they're almost entirely relying on foreign AI.
Right, licensing tech from U.S. companies like Waymo or Chinese companies like Baidu.
So the physical cars are driving on European or Middle Eastern streets, but the digital brain belongs to a foreign superpower. Papandreou asks, does relying on foreign tech stacks to power fundamental public infrastructure raise deep sovereign risks?
I mean, if the AI driver becomes the operating system of future mobility, whoever owns it dictates the pricing and data of the global market.
Exactly. Just like Apple and Google dictated the smartphone era, the biggest point of friction in the coming decade might not be physical infrastructure at all. It might be deciding who actually owns the code that moves our cities.
That is a massive question for the industry to figure out. If you enjoyed this episode, new episodes drop every 2 weeks. Also, check out our other editions on electrification and battery technology, next-gen vehicle intelligence, and commercial fleet insights.
Yeah, thank you for joining us as we sorted through the noise today to find what really matters.
Definitely. Keep an eye out for the next deep dive, and don't forget to subscribe.